Hello, this is Kathrine Johansson from Upstream Media. The following program will present a dialogue with researcher, writer and artist Jacob Nordangård. It will be based upon his books, particularly two books, one on the Rockefeller family and their influence upon especially oil and especially the Green New Deal, the climate change movement. And we will also talk about the ideologies of something such as transhumanism and the slogan "Build Back Better" that is tied to the World Economic Forum. Now, our talk is based upon the thorough work that Jacob has made and presented in his books. In his books, you can find lots of references to all the claims and statements that he is making in the dialogue. But in this program, we will focus upon the dialogue between two people and a deeper understanding of the overall situation. So please, if you're very interested in finding references and of course thorough work, you can consult the books of Jacob Nordangård. But until then, I hope you will enjoy the program. Okay, so welcome to the second part of the program where we are talking with Jacob Nordangård here on Upstream Media. And in this program, we're going to talk about Build Back Better, the Build Back Better slogan. We're going to talk about transhumanism, and we're going to talk about the Green New Deal and the connection between the 17 sustainability goals and you can say the technocratic agenda, so to speak. Because while all the focus is placed on vaccinating as many people as possible, and everybody are discussing whether there should be forced vaccination and corona passport and all of these things, a lot of other things are happening behind the curtains in these underlying networks of power that we talked about in the last program. And so we want to talk about what is actually going on behind the scenes and what is happening that is actually maybe even more important than the COVID passports and the overall COVID situation. So, concerning the Build Back, well, let's start by introducing the Build Back Better slogan. Have you heard this slogan before? And what do you think of it? What does it mean, Build Back Better?
Well, I mean, it means what it says, build back better, because they think that the former system for the world, it's broken, it's not functioning, and this is an opportunity to build a better system, a perfect system. That's the goal of this. And this, I mean, this goes back to you can say the Fabian Society and their slogan, remold it near to the heart's desire. And they have this window at the London School of Economics, a glass window with colored glass. And it contains a picture of a globe, the Earth, but they have a hammer, but they are smashing the globe in order to rebuild it in their fashion. So it goes back a long time, and they use this metaphor on and on.
Yeah, so we're going to build back better after the COVID crisis. Is that what is implied in the concept?
Yes, crisis and opportunity.
Crisis and opportunity. And we actually heard this slogan from many world leaders and also from Prince Charles in England. They all sort of repeated the same kind of wording, you can say, or vocabulary. Like I said, we were going to talk about also the sustainability agenda and the climate change agenda. And it was quite interesting because I just heard today that at Roskilde University Center in Denmark, they just came out with a new report or so-called white paper concerning studies of conspiracy theories, where the Great Reset and the Agenda 21 was mentioned as conspiracy theories. But what is the Great Reset? And well, we can take it one at a time, just shortly, because we're going to talk much more about it during this program. But what is the Great Reset and what is Agenda 21? Just shortly.
Yeah, the Great Reset was an initiative from the World Economic Forum. And it was proclaimed in June last year, a couple of months after the pandemic was declared. And it was more like an action plan for the future. And you can say that it's what Build Back Better is. Now we have to do these things when this pandemic has happened. And now we can adjust things and do it better and make a restart for the world. That's what it is. And I mean, it's stupid to say that this is a conspiracy theory because it's very well documented. And I mean, Klaus Schwab, he published a book at the same time, COVID-19, The Great Reset, where we discuss these plans for the future and how we see on the world. So, I mean, it's nothing that is especially speculative or anything like that. It's so amazing now to see this. We have the same thing in Sweden with the government agency, MSB.
You have the same kind of report?
Yeah, the same kind of report about conspiracy theories during the pandemic.
Yes.
And they also mentioned Agenda 21. And
the Great Reset?
And the Great Reset, yeah. And also they put in all the kind of conspiracy theories that we have. I mean, we also have this speculative, mad stuff. But it's like they are mixing it with, I mean,
flat Earth and stuff like
criticism against what's happening, and also, I mean, we should be able to discuss what's happening at the World Economic Forum, and we should be able to discuss what Agenda 21 means for us, because I mean it's an official agenda by the United Nations and all the nations on the earth. So I mean. But I think that they mean, oh no, this is a benign agenda. This is not a bad thing, and the conspiracy theories are about, oh, this will be a start on a global dictatorship.
No, I didn't have time to read through the whole white paper, but I'm going to see if in which way it's characterized, because in the beginning it's just defined as conspiracy theories. So it doesn't explain anything that it's only the bad version or some kind of interpretation of it, but it's the idea of the Great Reset and the idea of Agenda 21 that is considered conspiracy theories. But could you shortly explain to the audience what Agenda 21 actually is?
Yeah, it was rooted in something that was called the Bruntland Report. It was published in 1987, and it's a kind of a roadmap for the world and how we should achieve some important goals during the 21st century. This was agreed on in 1992 at the Rio Summit, organized by the United Nations. Mm-hmm. And all the countries signed this and are now working for this. And it has a lot to do with environmental goals, of course, but it also has a lot of goals for humanity as a whole.
Yeah, and then people also talk about Agenda 2030. So can you explain what is the difference between Agenda 2030 and Agenda 21?
Agenda 21 is for the whole century, and Agenda 2030 is just a part of it. I mean, we had before in during from 2000 to 2015, we had something that was called the Millennium Development Goals. That was, I think, 8 goals for the world, and then they didn't achieve that much with those goals. But we decided in 2012 that they would work on new goals for 2030. So this is just a part of this big plan for Agenda 21. So in 2030, we will have a new meeting, of course, and then discuss how will we and have discuss the next 15 years. Probably.
And are the 17 sustainability development goals a part of Agenda 21?
Yes, you can say that, because Agenda 21 is the overall agenda, and this is just a part of it. It's just it's like the 5-year plans from in these.
So they're actually very much tied to the Agenda 2030, the goals that are to be reached by 2030.
Yeah. Because I mean, it's the goals is part of the Agenda 2030, but Agenda 2030 is a part of the whole Agenda 21. Yeah. And right now it's interesting because sometimes when we have a little bit of a break from the whole Corona situation, then some of the same people involved in the Corona situation, such as Bill Gates and Klaus Schwab and Boris Johnson and many others, are talking about the great threat of climate change. So when we do get a little bit of break from being afraid of pandemics, if you are afraid of pandemics, then they talk about how serious these carbon gas emissions could become for the whole world, you can say. And during this period also, the Danish government and Danish politicians have actually changed their line because they were not so much into climate change and into the environmental goals before, but now they have actually turned and they're talking about reaching this net zero emission and focusing upon climate change as such. But Is that? I think it happened also with politicians in other countries. So is that a positive thing? With no, I would say not, because it's not about the environment and it's not about the climate. It comes with solutions. But I don't think a lot of people really want. It comes with control and controlling emissions. And emissions comes from people. And that means control over people.
Yes, and yesterday the last time we also talked about the difference between an overall environmental view on which kind of problems are very important at the global level and the local level, and this focus on climate change. I mean, is it enough to just talk about climate change if you want to do something positive for the environment?
Yeah, and it's I think it's a big problem because all the other environmental goals that can be good, very good. I have a background myself from the Green Party in Sweden, but I saw this coming, and they suddenly all talked only about the climate.
Yeah, because
and suddenly climate is environment, and all the other problems they suddenly don't exist.
Yeah, because there are huge problems with plastic, for instance, but my interest is food, actually. So, I mean, agriculture and food and poisonous foods.
Yeah.
Too much poison, too many toxins in the food that we eat. I guess that's also kind of a big problem. And so if we were really interested in health and environmental problems, then I would expect there to be more focus on many areas, not just climate change.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's like they can do, and I mean, if you look on where this climate issue comes from, I mean, it's those actors that has created all these problems that are actually introducing this and has introduced it on the political scene. So
Yeah.
So it's like look at that. Look at the climate, and they are, in the other hand, they are polluting the earth, kind of.
But that's when we move into this sort of this collision between the critical approach to the idea of climate change and the focus on climate change, and then these environmental problems, and actually trying to find out who do we actually need to fight, and what are we going to be opposed towards? Because then into this problem field comes Greta Thunberg. And so she's also very concerned with the environmental problems, but at the same time, she's also criticizing the people from the World Economic Forum. And the latest talk that she gave at the COP26, she called this COP26 she called it a greenwashing conference. And, showing indignation, as she always does, towards these leaders. So I guess many people in the green movement, many people in the eco-village movement, they're thinking, of course, that she is serving their cause. And because they are also very critical of the people of World Economic Forum when it comes to environmental problems. So what do you think about Greta Thunberg and her approach to this whole situation? I mean, is she genuine, and is she right? And what are actually her main the main issues that she's trying to point towards? That was 3 questions, but
we can see if I can sort that out. Well, I think Greta herself thinks that she's really doing something good, and that the criticism is real and important. But the thing is, if we go back in history and watch how this has evolved with activists, already in the Stockholm conference in 1972, we had these groups, like Greta Thunberg in the 70s, and they were very angry against this industrial society and everything. And at that time, they were very disappointed with the result. So, and it has been every time we have had these big conferences, they have been there. And in the 70s, they were funded. Friends of the Earth, for example, they were put up and funded by rich oil people like Robert Anderson from the Atlantic Richfield Corporation, and they had this role to act as an opposition and more tell the world that we really have to do something. And but they were payrolled by the same forces that they criticized, and that's how you control the narrative. And this goes all the way to Greta Thunberg. And before Greta, we had these climate marches. They were funded by Rockefeller Brothers Fund, for example, and a lot of these influential big foundations. And their money came from the oil industry.
What do they want then, those leaders, like the people from the oil industry or the leaders of the World Economic Forum? what is it that they want, if they're actually, I mean, if Greta is actually working in their favor, but it looks like she's working in opposition to them. But what is it that these leaders want?
I mean, they want to change the society. And they want activists to call for change. We can't live the way we used to, and we have this agenda that we have worked on for a very long time to move society in a new direction and into this technocratic system.
Greta is pointing towards this net zero carbon emissions, but she's also constantly pointing towards, she's always saying, listen to the science. Like, this is not about my opinion, this is not about me, it's about listening to the science. So you can just go and check that out, and then, you know, everything is for certain. That is the few things she's saying all the time. So if the elites are actually in favor of her saying that, then they want this focus. And how is that tied to the technocratic agenda? That is the question I wanted to ask.
I mean, the thing with pointing at science, that for sure is
pointing at science and pointing towards this net zero carbon emission.
Yeah, because it's a part of the technocratic solutions for emission control. And emission control is a cornerstone in the technocratic system. And if you listen to Greta's speeches, sometimes she kind of say things that comes from the scientists about this.
Yeah.
And the problem is, I mean, the scientists are payrolled by the same old oilmen like the activists are. So yeah, it goes their way.
In which way can you say that the scientists are paid by the oil people and the elites behind?
Well, they have set up institutions, scientific institutions, and it's if you look about the background on how the climate issue evolved, you can see that very much, and they have also set up institutions sometimes when the university has been kind of we don't think this is kind of scientific, we think this is more like I mean, policy. It's policy making. This is not about open debate. And then they put up their own institutes. We have one in Stockholm Environment Institute, and I know that the university, Stockholm University, wasn't very keen on this. So they couldn't move into the campus. They had to be outside the university. But they have always wanted to connect them, and now I think they are kind of achieving this.
And what about the Ipcc, which Greta is always referring to as well? Is that also a part of the elite structure in all of this?
I mean, Ipcc is, I mean, it's a United Nations agency under the World Meteorology, WMO. So very much, and if you look on the key people involved in Ipcc, the main authors, they often come from like institutes like the Royal Institute of International Affairs in London and so on, and these are elite institutes, and they have a certain agenda, but I mean, Ipcc, they don't do the research themselves. They just collect research from all over the world to these reports, and then they have this summary for policymakers that make where they kind of take out the parts that they present for politicians and so on. And the thing is, who are the main authors for that report? And that's a problem.
Yeah, but I think when you're explaining these things, it's sort of like coming back to the whole idea the power structures behind the corona crisis, because it's you cannot point towards particular agents or evil people behind of all this. It's kind of like it's systemic. But why is there a systemic interest in pointing towards carbon emissions as the reason for all environmental problems? Why? I mean, if we are doubting that this is actually the most important area, that it is not the most important area to address, then why are they all focused upon it? I mean, is it so that can we not trust any of our scientific institutions?
I think it's worse and worse for each year what goes on, because now it has changed with universities. Before we had more we have professors, and I don't know how it is in Denmark, but in Sweden we were a professor for life, and you could criticize the government and they couldn't sack you. So everything that is gone now, and now you have to stick to the agenda. I mean, and if you're not into preaching the right things, like the climate, I mean, it's impossible. And for me, it was very painful to see this at the university when I was a PhD student. Because I mean, I just did this network analysis on how the climate issue had evolved, and that alone was enough for them to question me, because why do you look on these things? I mean, why? We know that this is certain. This is it's like you were picking on something that it was like questioning the science behind the climate, to actually look on the network behind it. So it has been a very, very sensitive thing, and I think especially in Sweden, because Sweden is a very central part of the climate agenda together with the United States. The Swedish scientists are the top people doing this, so it has been very sensitive to question anything, and all the old professors that and I have talked to a lot of them, those old people. Now they are dying off, I can say, because they're old now. But I talked to a couple of these professors like 15 years ago when I was interested in this background, and they said that it was so strange because in the 80s, early 80s, it was, I mean, they had it wasn't a lot of money in the climate issue. So it was these professors who were nerds that were interested in weather and climate and how these things work, and they said it was so strange because suddenly this new paradigm came, and it was like overnight. It was kind of no discussion. It was before we had an open debate about this, and this thing with human emissions and humans' influence on climate was not the main paradigm, and it was kind of, oh, they don't really know what we're talking about. We know this. So these professors were kind of, what was happening? And suddenly they weren't listened to. And I know some of them, they just, they had very big problems with, especially in the, after like Al Gore came in and this inconvenient truth movie. Yeah. That they were kind of more or less attacked by students and questioned, why are you saying this? You are evil. But they were just wanted to be scientific. And okay, I have studied, I know one professor that recently passed away now, Vibjörn Kallén. He talked about these things. I mean, he had all the knowledge. He was one of the best of his kind at Stockholm University and Uppsala University. And suddenly he wasn't worth anything because he said the wrong thing. He questioned the influence by man in the climate. And the students didn't, I think they actually destroyed the tires on his car and a lot of his stuff. So, and he's not the only one. I know a couple of others if that happened, you don't want to be that guy that tell that it can. I have some. I don't think it's really this way. I have this other opinion about this. It's a high price. So we have created this consensus culture, a consensus culture on the universities, and that's a totally.
Then I would like to say, because I've been very transdisciplinary in my research, but with a basis in the human sciences and. So using the paradigms of the human sciences, and I think that originally in Europe we did have a tradition for understanding more of the complex structures of society and analyzing something such as Foucault's discourse theory and these kinds of academic disciplines that would actually be able to. I mean, it should have been developed constantly. At the same time as we take this very technical, instrumental approach and positivistic dominance in the scientific and academic institutions, the human sciences should have developed so that it was possible to both talk about the technological development and also institutional developments, like constantly analyzing critically what is happening, because I guess what you are describing is actually happening at a systemic level, and it needs some kind of overall analysis and some kind of group psychology analysis as well in order to understand what's actually happening. Because I think this is why many ordinary people cannot understand the kind of power that lies within the climate focus and the COVID narrative, because it's so overall, it is about many people at once, like in the social systems theory. I mean, that can be used for some things, but not all things, but some things. But it's still is this overall, it's a supra individual level where you can analyze things with many people involved at systemic levels. So, but that has been undermined for so many years. So people have forgotten, like we talked about in the other program, that everyone thinks that science is it's statistics, and it is the paradigm, the positivistic paradigm, and that's why people can also be locked into this idea that if the situation right now can only be understood through medical science, and it's not possible to analyze it further than that. So, and that is the same situation with the climate crisis and the COVID crisis. But I think it's very interesting about Greta Thunberg, because many people, I've been also involved for a while with the eco-village movement and those networks, and they're doing so much work. And this whole, also we had the alternative in Denmark, the Green Party, and it didn't go so well, but they did have this focus on changing the way we are living, and actually wanted to have a more humanistic perspective also, but it didn't function. But many of these people are still very involved in thinking that Greta Thunberg is a kind of savior, like they're treating her like a kind of savior. And that's why I want to ask a few more questions about her, because I know you have been into it. And I want to ask first and foremost, why it was possible for her to be so exposed in the media and to meet ex-presidents and these high-ranking people at the World Economic Forum. Because I'm thinking, can anyone just get in there? And is it just because she's very intelligent? Because I have met many intelligent, very creative people and visionary people within these movements, and they were never heard. So why was she? Why did she move through so fast? I
mean, she was like headhunted, you can say. Yeah, because the United Nations and something called the Plant for Planet Foundation, they had a youth conference in Germany. I think it was like 2015. And they discussed new methods to reach out with this message about climate. And during that meeting, they discussed maybe we should have something called school strikes. And this was they thought this is a really good idea. We just need some that can take the place and be this activist that people will know about. And eventually, through the Plant for Planet network that is connected to the Club of Rome, they found Greta Thunberg. And it was... and the thing is with Greta, she's actually a relative to Svante Arrhenius, far away on his father's side. But, so it's very interesting that she's actually have as roots, and she's the daughter of a famous operatic singer and an actor. And they are very high-profile people in Sweden. So, and the thing, she was approached at the time. I think she wrote an article in a big Swedish morning paper about climate, and she kind of won this contest. And after that, she was approached, and shouldn't you be acting more and do these climate strikes? And she approved to it. So she was more or less recruited for this. And the same day, she was she went to the Swedish Parliament, Riksdagshuset, and she was sitting outside. I think it was in like September. The same day, a new book from her mother came out. And Greta sat there, and it came a film team that filmed her, and the evening press was there, took pictures and everything. So I mean, it wouldn't happen if it was me or my daughter that was sat outside Riksdagshuset. Nothing would happen. Maybe some security guards will come and say, you can sit here. But it's so, and after that, she was invited to every big meeting, and eventually got to the World Economic Forum. And that's, I mean, it's just to think about how much money it costs to go to World Economic Forum. I think it's like $70,000 or something. It's stupid money.
You mean to attend the meetings?
To attend, I maybe 7,000. I mean, like 70,000 kronor.
Really?
Yeah. So it's very, very expensive to get there. And in that case, someone wants her to go. Very much. So I mean, she comes out everywhere, and we know how it functions with you can be made a star directly if you have the right connections. So Greta had that.
And for many other people, they can talk and write and be very intelligent for very many years, and nobody's going to listen to them.
Exactly.
So that's interesting. But you mentioned the guy Arrhenius Svante, who I also just found out is her great grandfather, I think.
Yes.
And he was the one who came up with the theory of the environment of the Drivhus effect.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's called in English. But actually, I'm also reading now that he was involved in eugenics.
Yes, yeah, he was. I mean, and a lot of people was involved in eugenics at that time, of course, and in the scientific community and among elites. But he was also in the board of Rasbiologiska institutet in Uppsala, Sweden, and that's the Institute of Eugenics.
Yeah.
So he was on the board of it, and very much into these things. And if you follow the history of greenhouse effect, as it's called in English, greenhouse effect, the research about climate and the human's influence, it's very well connected to eugenics all the time. Yeah, it's rooted in eugenics.
There is some family history behind Greta as well, you can say. I mean, when she has this kind of grandfather, of course, we have no idea how that would have influenced her, but there is some links, and that is interesting because when we move into, for instance, the history of someone like Bill Gates, his parents were also involved in eugenics. And I just for the audience's sake, would you very shortly explain what eugenics actually is, and why did you say that many people were involved in it at the time?
Yeah. I mean, it's
totally. If some people don't know what eugenics is.
Yeah, I mean, it's what the Nazis were into, and in Swedish we say rasbiologi, racial hygiene. I mean, it's the betterment of a man through, and you want to get rid of the bad genes, the bad people. And it's about promoting almost Superman. We want to create the good human, and it's connected to social Darwinism and
And then after the Second World War, it became very unpopular to announce anything, to have anything to do with eugenics. But why are people talking about it still? I mean,
it never disappeared. They just changed name.
Yeah.
On it. So I mean, the same institutions are left. They just change name on them. They had to get another brand, change the cover for it.
An influence of the eugenics ideology and the overall situation that we're experiencing right now when it comes to coronavirus and vaccines and all of this?
Yeah, it's very, very well connected to this, because it's the idea it's more like we can say like alchemy. And you change the human, and all these experimental vaccines. It's all rooted in these ideas, and it's like playing God as well, and then all the natural methods are kind of not interesting. They are into this
technology,
artificial technologies to achieve this now.
Yeah. Actually, I wanted, time is running, of course, when we're talking about these really interesting topics, but I wanted to also ask, before we move more into technocracy, I wanted to ask, when it comes to climate change, the history of it, because you have been writing about the Rockefellers and their involvement in the focus on climate change, and they're like moving in several lines or two lines involved in oil, Standard Oil, and then at the same time involved in the climate issues. So of course we don't have time to go through all the material that you have delivered when it comes to the Rockefeller, but could you say something about the influence of the Rockefellers on the climate change?
Yes, of course. I mean, it starts in the 50s, I would say, with climate. It's very, very early, and it's they are very interested in this greenhouse effect theory, but was developed by Arrhenius, of course, and then a guy called Guy Callender took it up in Britain, and we also had a researcher in Germany, in Nazi Germany, called Hermann Flohn, and he wrote one of the first influential papers on human influence on the climate, and he was later an advisor for United Nations. So it was developed in Nazi Germany, and later in the 50s, the Rockefellers, or John D. Rockefeller III, he had a conference about the population problem, with and this eventually started the organization Population Council. On this meeting, they had a lot of eugenics. Everyone was into eugenics at this meeting. We were handpicked for this. And they discussed a method for reducing the population on Earth. And at this meeting, they had a scientist on this meeting called Roger Revelle. And Roger Revelle became very interested in the climate issue. And he was commissioned by the Rockefeller Foundation to write a report where he studied the atmosphere and the trace gases in the atmosphere. And they made some measurements about carbon dioxide, and that's the root of how the issue of climate became important during the 50s, because this is the first phase. This was discussed by the Rockefeller Brothers Fund. They had a report called Special Studies Project, and in this report they talked about interdependence and how on global problems that could be important in the future, or more or less like we need to give money and to these things that are going through borders, problems that research about problems that goes through the whole world. One was health, and because I mean, pandemics goes over borders, it's a global problem, and another one was climate. So, and this is very influential for the administrations in the president and administrations in the United States in the 60s. So we take more or less this report and put it in first the Kennedy administration and then in the Lyndon Johnson administration. And Lyndon Johnson is the first president that talks about the climate. And he has been approached by Roger Revelle, and also his wife is a good friend of Lawrence Rockefeller. So they influence Lyndon, and Lyndon says that this is a problem we need to address. This is important. So that took it to the American level. And then some years later, Sweden said we want to have this big conference in Sweden about the environment, the Stockholm meeting in 1972. And the preparations for this meeting, they introduced climate. And the one who was responsible for this was a guy called Carroll Wilson, a close friend to Nelson Rockefeller. He was also a part of the Club of Rome. So he wrote a very important research report called Study of Man's Impact on Climate. And this is it's a very real important document that more or less start this process in the United Nations, that they have to get research for these things. And during the 80s, they have a lot of conferences about the climate and human influence on the climate. And Bert Bolin in Sweden are involved, and a lot of other scientists. But at the same time, they have these conferences. We have this Bruntland Report, Bruntland Commission. Yes. And the Bruntland Commission, the Rockefellers, they found a guy called Gordon Goodman. Gordon Goodman was the head of the Bayer Institute in Sweden, and it became Stockholm Environment Institute. And they approached him and asked him to write about the climate, a chapter about the climate, to get it in the Bruntland Report. They succeeded in that. So and that took it to that level, and after it was in the Bruntland Report, soon the Ipcc was created and everything. So and after that, the Rockefellers have been involved in a lot of activities, and especially when it comes to activism and to get youth to be interested in climate. So I would say we wouldn't have discussed this question if it hadn't been for the Rockefeller foundations.
Mm-hmm. Could you explain the relation between the Club of Rome and the Bruntland Report? Because is there a relation, and maybe some of the viewers also don't know what the Club of Rome is?
The Club of Rome is an environmental think tank that was founded in 1968 by Aurelio Pecce, and he was second chief in Fiat Corporation, and also Alexander King. He was from the OECD. They founded this think tank that were starting to discuss global problems and how to achieve a more planned society for the future, a global society that could take care of its problems. So they discussed the problems, they put them on the agenda, and they came with solutions. And the solution was to create this information society, one can say. But they become very influential in the environmental debate during the 70s. And with Limits to Growth. That's a very important book that came in same time as the Stockholm Conference, 1972. And the Prime
Minister Gro Harlem Brundtland, she was a member of the Club of Rome.
Yeah, she was a member of the Trilateral Commission.
Ah, okay.
And we also have always connected in these early years was a good friend of the Rockefellers called Maurice Strong. Maurice Strong headed the Stockholm Conference. He headed the Rio Conference in '92, and he was a part of this Bruntland Commission. And we find a couple of people in the commission that were connected to these two networks, the Club of Rome network and the Trilateral Commission.
Yeah, so they both play a role, actually.
Yes, very much so.
And do they play a role today, do you think?
Club of Rome?
Yeah, the Club of Rome and Trilateral Commission.
Yes, very much so. Club of Rome has been, as I said, the network behind Greta Thunberg is from Club of Rome. So, and they were very influential in the 70s and the 80s, and less so between, in the 90s and early 21st century. But now they are back, I would say. And I studied the Club of Rome a lot in my doctoral thesis, and very influenced over European biofuel policy, because they are always there. And so, yeah, very important. And,
so is there also a connection to the Fourth Industrial Revolution and then the Great New Reset?
Yeah, because it's, that's the policy. They both the Club of Rome and the Trilateral Commission, they talked about the new society that were needed to address these global problems, and that is the Fourth Industrial Revolution. And if you look up what was written years long before the Fourth Industrial Revolution was presented, you can find all these measures and thinking in these think tanks.
Yeah,
so very, very well connected to this agenda.
Yeah, I also want to ask, why do you think there was so much focus upon population control why was this problem so important? And I think there are many discussions between different people. Some people think that it's necessary to control the growth of the population on planet Earth, and some people think that there's plenty of space for even many more people, and it's not really a problem. Why do you think they had so much focus on population control?
Because we want to control the population. That's the easy answer. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, that's the thing, and in the 50s, it's very clear. If you go through the Rockefeller Foundation and Rockefeller Brothers Fund papers from that time, it's they are population control and control over the natural systems, and a global governance regime to control this.
Yeah, so it's
all in their papers all the time, and many. If you go back even into when the Rockefeller Foundation was created, it's these thoughts all the time. They haven't changed a bit.
No, so the explanation is actually it's because the goal is world government. That is why it's interesting to have population control and this focus on climate change and
because it's a global problem.
Yeah,
and that's an important thing. They seldom talk about local problems. This foundation, it's always the global problems, and it's always we humans, and because it's not them, because they do good things for the environment and the people and adjust these wrongdoings. It's just us that are the problem. It's we who are the polluters, and not them and their big corporations. So it's a very twisted thinking.
Yeah. So I think there's a lot to talk about when it comes to this globalism, also at the philosophical level, actually. It raises a lot of questions in my mind anyway, but I want to move further because there's so much else that we also want to talk about here. And I also want to talk about the sustainability development goals, because when you read through them, they're very utopian, they're very positive, something like eradicate poverty and eradicate hunger, and everyone should have they should have a place to live and food and good health and everything. And it's for the whole world. And in Denmark, every commune in all of Denmark have plans for how to implement the 17 sustainability development goals, and all the people in the green movements are very dedicated to these development goals. And my question is about the relation between this utopian level of the sustainability development goals and then what's actually happening, and what are actually the plans that are going to lead us towards the fulfillment of these goals. And do you see what is the relation between the utopia and the reality of this? I mean, so far you can see.
Yeah, I mean, it's like communistic propaganda. I mean, I think if you go back and look on what the Russian communists said, it was the utopia, and the Chinese and the Third Reich, everyone says we're going to bring you utopia, and this find a wonderful world that will eventually spring up someday. So I mean, it's an old tactic, and it's also I mean, it's like religious as well. You have this, you're going to heaven one day. We're going to create heaven on earth for you, and and nobody can really say no to this. But it's far from reality, and it's very, very, very dangerous to create utopias. Utopias become dystopia, because I mean, you can create a good environment for yourself or maybe your family, and you can agree on things, but you can't apply this on the whole world, because if you want to have this utopia, it comes with dictatorship in the end, because now it's like we want to have all these goals and they are so fine, and if you question it, if you say something about, you say, what's wrong with you? Do you want poverty in the world? Do you want this hunger and everything like that? So it's very hard to question these things as well. But when you eventually see what's happening, that's another thing, and how the thinking is, and the way we work with this. And I've studied a guy called Peter Vincimus. He was a part in my theory chapter in my doctoral thesis. His thinking is behind a lot of this that is happening, because he talks about something that's called the policy life cycle. And it's like it's machine thinking on how you put a problem on the agenda, and how you get a trigger event to get people's attention to do things, and how you influence actors to act like you want, and then you get a result, and then this is repeated over and over. And it has become like professionalized, these things, and they do this now with like the COVID crisis.
Yeah,
we talk about and they also have the solutions ready, but they want to create a problem in order to build back better all the time. So they actually create severe problems in the world. I mean, with the COVID crisis, hunger and I mean, people. I mean, a lot of things with people don't have money to buy food, and it's we can't go to the jobs, and it was so much. So they kind of create this mess just to build back better all the time.
Yeah, I remember the COVID action plan at the World Economic Forum, which was very, had very many areas covered, and action plans for all areas. And it was published at the very beginning of the crisis. It's like you have to question. Actually, you cannot work through this whole very complicated scheme of strategies to deal with this situation if you didn't know already that it was going to happen.
Exactly. So everything is prepared, and that's one thing that I found out when I was studying European policy. I mean, a lot of when the trigger comes, they have been preparing for this like 10 years.
Yeah.
10, 15 years, it can be preparations before they actually do these things. And then they have everything ready and could have their policy that people demand and want. So, I mean, it's a strategy, and I think have used it for a long, long time.
This is also what is very difficult for ordinary people to understand, I think, that it's actually, that it's handled at this level, and there's so much planning at this level that some of the things that are happening that people think, oh my God, this happened, this was a coincidence, or that it was actually a part of a plan. I mean, and even when you talked about actors also, and and they're also prepping the people. Like we always know now that when they're going to come with new restrictions, they're starting, to send articles and to talk about this or that problem. And then we know that very soon they're going to make new restrictions. And at an overall level, it's been like that. So also actually with terrorism and these things. So, I mean, but I think for many people, it's really difficult to understand. And that's probably also one reason that people will and cannot understand that the COVID situation is actually not true. It's not what politicians are telling us that it is.
But the thing to become very, very, very rich and have influence, it's because of the planning. You're strategic. And if you don't do that, you're a loser. And the ordinary people, they don't get that rich. They just things just happen for them, and they don't have the time to be that strategic and think that many moves beforehand. It's just, they read what's in the paper and or what's on the television, and that's what's happening. They don't understand these things, and if they do, and if we question anything, it's like no. You can't say that. Things isn't planned. It's just coincidences. Everything. If you imply that they plan things, it's like a conspiracy theory, isn't it? And it's just so stupid. I mean, you have to plan. It's like have a business and have a factory. You have to plan everything so that if you don't plan, the whole factory will malfunction. That's easy as that. It's just logic.
And so, then if we're going to end the climate section here, because that is such a huge topic, and of course we don't have time to talk about everything there is to talk about, but I want to end it with considering what do they want to use, or how do they want to use this focus on the carbon emissions? I mean, because in my view, this is a tool that can place more taxes on the ordinary citizens. But what do you think?
But it's one thing is that it's a part of a new currency as well. I mean, with carbon, we will not have the old model with how money functions. It will be a resource-based system, but and will all be measured in carbon or carbon dioxide. So everything that is made, you will have measured how much carbon did it take to do this, and then this will be in this system, and you also have to measure your own carbon footprint, because the carbon footprints it's very important, and we have this long plan to reduce this to zero, and when you will have a very, very sinister system, and you will just have your quota of credits.
So do you think a person will be punished if they use too much or emit too much carbon?
Yes, and they can be punished in other ways. If you don't do as the regime tells you, you get they lower your credits, or eventually they just don't allow you to use your credit card anymore. It's a very sinister way of thinking.
And that also involves the economic side, the whole economic systems. That is also a whole topic to discuss. But if we're moving a little bit more into the technology and transhumanism, we can say that one way or the other, we cannot avoid a kind of technological revolution, just like we have experienced before, because there are new technologies like artificial intelligence and nanoscale biotechnologies and holographic virtual worlds and digital quantum computing. So I guess many of these inventions are already there to some extent, and they are also involved when we are discussing what we fear in this system that you have also described so far. I mean, the Great New Reset and what it can lead towards. But I think this is also a level that is very difficult for many people to understand. And I think also many people feel like it doesn't really concern them. But this thing about 5G and the Internet of Things and this whole overall control system. But now the question is, like, do everyone have to care about this? I mean, this technological level. I mean, will we all be confronted with these levels of social reality, one way or the other?
Yes. If this continues, you will. That's what we have discussed. The fourth industrial revolution, it will go into every aspect of life.
Yeah.
So people need to wake up, because they don't control their future now. They don't control how it. They just have to get used to these new devices and everything. But it will. They can't just stay away from it. I think it's more or less impossible today in this society.
But that's also what we talked about in the other program, because it's like this is, people just accept that things are happening at the technological level, so there's no discussion. There are no debate programs on television where they are discussing, should we or should we not have holographic virtual worlds, or the metaverse on Facebook, or should we have quantum computers, or should we have nanotechnology, nanoscale biotechnologies? I mean, nano stuff inside our bodies. I mean, who are discussing this? Nobody is discussing this with a broader audience. So I think it's really difficult for people to relate to. About how could we do this better? I mean, if we don't want to be victims of this overall plot, how can we tackle this technological revolution?
Yeah, of course, we need to have a debate. We need to discuss these things. But the thing now is they are pushing this so hard. So and it's through propaganda, and it's through indoctrination, and it's through all the TV shows. We have Black Mirror, we have everything, and it's like it's inevitable. You can't get away from it. They just push this, and it's like no, it's deterministic. There's no alternative. And that's totally wrong. So of course we need to bring up this, and that's the thing I have tried for a lot of years, but it's very hard. It's very hard to come up with this, but because as it is now, the ones who are our rulers, they are committed to this, and that's why there isn't any debate about it.
Yeah,
we believe in this idea.
And then I want to ask you, because we must expect that technologies do evolve constantly. I mean, we are humans, we are creative, we get new input, we make new inventions. But what is the difference between this natural evolution of technologies and ideas and creation, and then transhumanism? What is the difference?
But transhumanism, I mean, it's about enhancing your own functions with the help of technology. And technological evolution, I mean, it can be the gadgets what we have around us. And I mean, better TV, all these, it's an evolution of technology, not evolution of a human body with the use of technology. So I think that's the difference.
But what if actually doctors or whoever makes these inventions can find a way to remove a gene or insert a gene that makes you not have cancer or not have some chromosomal error or whatever? What if? I mean, can we just say that, for instance, nanotechnology or quantum computing or even virtual realities is wrong by itself?
Not totally wrong, but I think now we don't have a discussion about it, and it's kind of playing God as well, and because now it's like, no, we humans are not perfect. It's kind of wrong with us, and all the natural methods, they are wrong. It's always this artificial way of doing things, and I think it it's leading us to a whole wrong direction. And we don't really know all the consequences about it. And also about the thing is they are very fast wanted us to accept more invasive forms, but we don't really can say no, because they make this normal. They make the artificial normal. And the society goes from, we are no longer attached to reality. We are approaching, I mean, all these things, a lot of this is about digitization. I mean, this thing with the Green New Deal, I mean, it's a digital New Deal. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And it's nothing about, I mean, being humans anymore. And it's all about reducing us humans to like robots. And that's one thing with the whole agenda as well, that we already have created systems that are more or less technocratic, and we force people into these systems, this perfect factory, and just make routine things as a preparation for the artificial intelligence to come and do this, because that's the system we're creating. We're creating a perfect system where we humans are not important anymore.
But that's
and that's I mean, it comes from human creativity, but kind of now we're kind of building this prison system, digital, and also we are not needed as humans anymore. If I'm going to buy a ticket to go by train in Sweden, I don't meet a person anymore. We don't have any personnel on the train stations. And this is the consequence of the fourth industrial revolution. The total automation of everything, and it's this the society we're supposed to have. We have it really good, and we have this knowledge of everything. Shouldn't we create something more humane where we people are actually a part of? And I thought about that some days ago. I was at my local grocery, and the girl in the cashier, she said, "Oh, I just got some chocolate from a customer because, and I always got this chocolate because she said, they think I'm so nice." So she always get that, but it's. I said you should ask for the things you really want. But the thing is, what I come to is that the new society. I mean, if you go to these big groceries, you just have machines. And those machines, how many times do you want to give a chocolate bar to the machine for, oh, you are so nice to me? So, I mean, that's those things we need. We need a humane dimension in it. I mean, technology should be something that we can use. It can help us, but it's not meant to be our overlord. And
exactly,
not meant to be
it's also a top-down system, like everything that we talked about so far is about this, well, the power relations, the elites, but it's also the whole technological plot, so to speak. It's strategic and it's top-down, so it's like what we also talked about, it's planned, so it's a planned strategy. Then few people are planning, and many people have to follow, and I guess that is probably the biggest problem in it all, because this whole control system, it needs people to be able to control it and to be on top of that system, and in that way, it's like some of the science fictions, and like some people are actually steering everyone else. But that's also what we experienced during the COVID crisis in a way, because everything they said, people did almost. So I've often been thinking that it must be hilarious in some way to be able to put out an order and then see the whole world acting upon that order. I mean, that's like an avatar in a computer game or something like that.
Yeah, and that's power. And that's what I discussed yesterday with the world brain concept. To be this conductor, and people you just send out the command and everyone just follow. And that's really scary, because a society should be organic and natural.
Yeah.
We need to get out of this.
So the development of new technologies should actually be more bottom-up emergence, emerge from the,
like it used to. I mean, we people we love problems. We love to solve problems. I think it's a humane thing. And it has been with our development. I mean, we had very big sanitary problems in the cities, and then there are clever people that were, how can we solve this? And we solved that, and suddenly we didn't have this big outbreaks of diseases in the cities because we solved that. So that's and that's good things to solve. But now we have come to a point that we have abandoned that. But the goals now is just, it doesn't make it better for us. It makes the situation just inhumane. The human dimension isn't a part of it anymore.
But in a way, I mean, at a metaphorical level, it's like there is some kind of mad scientist, or it's like in cartoons, you have this a few persons, or one person who wants to be the leader over everybody, and who is like the mad scientist. Or now it's also with technologies and stuff, but it's like also this megalomania idea that I'm so superior, that we are so superior that we can actually control everything and steer all inventions and everything that has to happen on this planet. We have to be able to control that. I mean, that is kind of like what do you call it, psychological disease?
yeah, it is. Megalomania. Yeah, it is.
But I'm also thinking, because when I did my PhD, as I talked about before, there was also transhumanism, people who were involved with transhumanism, and at that time, it was not very popular where I came, and people were calling them eugenics and these kinds of things, and they didn't like to listen to it. But how come it's, I mean, is it really popular in academic institutions today? And if it is, I mean, why is it? I mean, do most people who also have important positions and are professors or whatever, lecturers and people working in IT universities and stuff, I mean, do they really, are they inhumane? Do they not want a world for humans with human qualities? Do they not love their wives and their husbands and their children? And do they like eugenics? Do they want to be a part of a big digital machine?
I don't think so, really. So why are we doing this? That's one question that is important, because I mean, it's all these people are needed to bring this in fruition, and I mean, deep down, everyone is a human. So I think it's a very important questions that you have. But of course, we have some people that more are into the power mode. But this is wow, and they are detached from reality, and I think they have this. They are not with the ordinary people. one can say, and then dream about this perfect system. And
you would have to expect that there are a lot of flesh and blood humans out there that the day that they come to doubt the COVID narrative or the authorities that are running it, and actually it's happening right now in Denmark as the new restrictions are coming, there are more people with like have some kind of expertise in different areas. There are some bank analytics that actually wrote a report where they doubted the whole thing, and they are suspended now from the bank. It's a big Danish bank. But there are more people. And I mean, shouldn't we expect that some of these flesh and blood humans that do have emotions and empathy, actually, once they come to understand just a little bit more, they're going to react towards it?
Yeah, I think now it's the time to start something, and I think I said it before, but it will come naturally now. When we are threatened as humans, and we have real emotions, we are really humane, and we care for each other, and when we are suddenly seeing each other, and okay, I'm not alone in this thing, I'm not alone in questioning this, we will come together and saw something, because we have something that this megalomaniac people don't have. We have, a connection between mind and heart. And I think that's a problem in this society. We have detached that connection between heart and mind. We just mind, and people don't trust themselves. They don't trust their feelings, emotions. They don't trust what they see on television. They need an expert to tell them how things are, and I think that's very common on. I mean, if you see the news, it's if we invite some politician and ask questions, they all in Sweden we have experts that are sitting and explaining what this. What we were talking about, so we don't have to think anything, and it's the same thing if we talk about this report about the conspiracy theories. It's like this. You can't talk about the Great Reset or Agenda 21 because it's a conspiracy theory, but it is there. We can see it, but they say it isn't there, so it can't be. And it must be a conspiracy theory, even if we have every proof in the world, because an authority says so. And then you're not thinking anymore. You're not. You're detached from reality, and it's like this Orwellian thing.
Yes, but is
two plus two equals 5? So yeah.
Yes, exactly, and that's why maybe it is fair to say that this whole thing is a battle of consciousness in the end. And you can also say that, I have described it as a war. I've seen it, and I do see it in a way as the Third World War, but it has moved into a different level, from the very physical to the mental and psychological, and also the digital, which is the virtual level. So it's actually, in a way, it's moved away from the physical level somehow. But it is also like a battle of consciousness in the sense that if we are going to move in a different direction, if this is not going to happen, I mean, and that's sometimes difficult to see when you sort of notice how many institutions are involved in the fourth industrial revolution and everything, but it would demand of the single individual to actually develop, to become aware that they can actually, maybe they can think for themselves, and maybe they can come free of the mind control and grow actually as individuals. I mean, so it's both. Must be a movement between networks of people and like-minded people, of course, but the individual also needs to change, right? Because so as to not always expect that somebody else is going to take care of every little element of their lives and take more responsibility. Also take the, like you say in the spiritual movement, and I don't think it's new age, but like take the power back to yourself. And that also means take much more responsibility. If you don't want to live in this kind of society, then we might have to take responsibility for the kind of society that we do want to live in. What do you think?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's a very important thing for people now, and I think it's happening now for a lot of people, and but also those who have not been affected and have this connection between. We can now more or less show the way for other people, and I mean, it's growing. You can feel it's growing all the time, and I think that's the thing that we are talking as well, because we are funding each other all over the world now.
Yeah.
So of course, and this is the natural intelligence. This is something that is. I usually say that I have put trust into GodNet, not the internet, because it's something natural we have and we connect to. We have it all the time. It's just we have to know what we have it, because someone has convinced us, but we shouldn't trust ourselves, and we don't have these powers that we actually have as humans. So. And when you find out, you become free from this. And one thing also is also that those who are in this key position and driving this society, they are very few. The most people just play along, because that's how we function. It's group psychology, and if we get more and more people that are more awake and show another way, we will attract ordinary people in the end. Because, I mean, the other way, who wants this cold machine world? I think very few.
Yeah, very few. I think
very
so.
few. Because, I mean, one thing when we have these lockdowns and everything, it's just we miss people. We miss to have relations with people, seeing people. Go to cafes, go to take a beer, all these things. So I think those who don't have these connections, they think that, oh man, we can create a perfect digital society where people want to be, instead of reality. They don't understand that. We actually have this. A real meeting is something totally different than have a Zoom meeting. I mean, it's good to have a Zoom meeting, but it's nothing with the real situation. But actually meet a person for real.
So in the end, maybe we end up much more humane than ever before.
Yeah, I hope so. At least for a while, because I also think we can't build a perfect system ever, because I mean we still have these forces. We have these sides with good and evil, and that's a part of this dualistic game we are into. So they will eventually try to build up Babel's Tower again. And I think it's just that's history, goes up and down. So, but after this, we will write a lot about it and warn about this again. But eventually, new holy books that will explain this, and we try to warn about don't do this, and new generations will fall for the trap.
Okay, that's a way to end this conversation, with the futuristic view of this happening once more. Yeah, yeah, there's so much that you can talk about, but we have to end it now. It's we have actually been 1.5 hours now.
Yeah.
So I think it's time to say thank you very much for your participation, and yeah, we will end it here. Do you have one finishing remark, maybe?
Well, I think I said it, didn't I? Well, I would say I'm positive. I think we're gonna win this war because, as I said, we have something that those megalomaniacs don't have.
Yes.
We are humans. And
Yeah.
that's our strength. We have our feelings. We have everything. We have empathy. We have, yes. So that's a winning concept in the end, I think.
Yeah. So that's a good way to end the conversation.